Sure.
Okay. Can we talk about Cuba?
Sure.
I don't know if you have any new information to give us. I know sometimes you randomly have new details, new totals or something, but any response to the report from the Associated Press that includes some of the details of these attacks, including that for some people, they could hear a noise and feel an attack in certain parts of a room, but not others.
Yeah. So I've certainly read the article with great interest, as did a lot of us. There's not going to be a lot that I'm going to be able to confirm about that report. I think all of this underscores that we are, at the State Department, very deeply concerned about what has taken place and what has happened to our American personnel who've been serving at our embassy in Cuba. It's a good reminder of the work that our people do each and every day to represent the United States in all across the world, and sometimes in very difficult situations. And this has certainly turned out to be a difficult situation for some of our people. I don't have any change in numbers to provide you at this time. We can certainly say that 21 people have been affected by this. We hope that that number will not increase. We certainly can't count that out. We are having our people medically tested. We have a full-time medical officer who is there in Cuba. But as you know, we've talked about this before, our staff is also able to get medical treatment and tests and everything here on what I'll just call the mainland. They continue to undergo tests. Our folks are able to leave Havana, leave Cuba, and return back home if they wish to do so, if they wish to, I think we call it compassionate curtailment or something like that, where they're able to switch out a job. So if they're serving there in Cuba, they want to come home and do something else, they're certainly welcome to do so. The investigation into all of this is still underway. It is an aggressive investigation that continues, and we will continue doing this until we find out who or what is responsible for this.
Does the number keep climbing because there have been new incidents, or because more people have seen medical professionals and gotten diagnoses?
I think, so the last reported incident we have remains the same as what I told you before a few weeks ago, which was late August. We are not aware of anything that has taken place since that time, but our people continue to undergo tests. The symptoms, and I'll be vague about this, but can be different in different people. And I'm not going to get into any specifics beyond that, but our people are continuing to be tested. Yeah.
The incident at the end of August, you prior to that had said that there hadn't been any incidents since the spring.
That's correct.
Were there any then in between that you didn't know about until more recently?
Not that I am aware of. Not that I'm aware of at this time.
And because more information obviously keeps coming in on this, and the details have changed as more people have come forward. I know at one point the phrase "health attack" was used. Then we've gone to incident. Is there any reason to use the word attack at this point, based on whatever new information you have?
The Secretary said back in August that our personnel in Cuba have been subject to health attacks. We have medically confirmed that our personnel's health was affected by these incidents. So I've been a little bit more broad. I've used the term incidents, but as we have learned more, the Secretary has referred to it as such.
Well, the Secretary referred to it at that time. So
Correct.
Is it appropriate to call these attacks?
The Secretary called them health attacks. He certainly did. The health of Americans was in fact affected by it.
Yeah, but it's the word attack that is the issue here.
I understand.
So, I mean,
the reality is we don't know who or what has caused this, and that's why the investigation is underway.
Okay, so for the people who remain there, because nobody really knows what's going on here, is there any kind of precaution that has been taken? I mean, I don't know what that would be, but can you say whether they've been able to identify things that they could do to try to avoid
I know
this?
that we have, certainly our diplomatic security and others have been able to look through people's rooms and do searches and things of that nature. But we still don't know who or what is causing this. And so it's hard to do a lot more when you don't know who or what is causing something.
There's some extra security at some the resident? Isn't there the
I'm-
Cubans that provided extra security?
If there is, I'm not aware of that, but we can look into it.
Have they changed anything about the living arrangements or the furnishings, or, I mean, have they moved things out of the residences?
I'm not sure. I can look into that and see what I can get for you.
Heather, beyond compassionate curtailment, has there been any consideration at the State Department of maybe reducing staff of those who've not been affected, as it appears, whether it's a health attack or an incident or whatever, that this is a dangerous situation and the U.S. isn't sure what's causing
I
it?
mean, look, it obviously is a dangerous situation when our people have been affected. We are tremendously concerned about that. We still have work that needs to be done. Our folks can come back to the United States if they wish to do so. It shows the bravery, the hard work, and the dedication of Americans, whether they are serving in Cuba or whether they are serving anywhere across the world. You know, we have folks who are in, down in the Irma territories right now. We have folks in Iraq and in Syria, all across the world, doing difficult jobs, and I want to recognize them and let them know that we care. We certainly have not forgotten about them, and that this investigation is aggressive. It's a multi-agency investigation, and that investigation will continue to figure out what's going on.
I just want to clarify one thing. When you, in your answer to the first question, said you weren't able to confirm any of the details that were in the report, but you're not disputing anything in the report, are you?
I'm not confirming. I'm not confirming anything in the report. That wouldn't be appropriate for me to do so, because some of what was reported was very detailed, and it would certainly go beyond anything that
I
we would be
understand
able
that,
to
but you're
comment
not you're not taking issue with any specific parts of the story. No?
That I'm not going to confirm. I'm not going to deny pieces of the story. It just wouldn't be appropriate for me to do that, because then that, is akin to the State Department saying, yes, this happened, no, this happened, certain things about that.
Have residences been changed at all?
Michelle, not that I'm aware of, but I will certainly look into that for you. I think that is a good question. It's a question that deserves to be asked, and I will be sure to follow up with our diplomatic security folks about that.
Is Cuba still cooperating with the U.S. investigation?
Last I heard, yes, they have been. Okay.
Can we ask
Hi.
about Cuba?
Yeah, certainly. Hi, Carol.
The Cuban authorities are saying that the foreign minister is coming here on their request. Is that accurate, and how much do you expect the health of embassy workers to play in these discussions that
So
you will
I
have
can
later
confirm
today?
that the secretary had a late add to his schedule this afternoon. The secretary will be hosting the Cuban foreign minister here in Washington, here at the State Department. That meeting is set for 5 o'clock today. It was requested, I can confirm, by the Cuban government.
And what, do you expect them to bring more information, or what is the purpose in there?
I don't want to get ahead of that meeting that's going to take place. So I expect certainly the secretary will have plenty of questions for them.
Can you say anything about how when President Trump back in, I believe it was June, was in Miami and talked about the sort of the crackdown, the change in U.S. policy towards Cuba, it doesn't appear that any of those regulations have actually passed and taken effect yet. I was wondering if you could explain what's happened.
I don't have any updates for you on that. I will see if that comes up at the meeting today. Wait, does anybody else have anything on Cuba? We're skipping around a lot today. Okay, well, let me come back to you, okay?
May I confirm the number of, relating to the Cuba Sonic incident, the number of American people hurt? Some news outlets say 25 people. May I confirm this number?
I can confirm the number of 21.
21.
21 Americans have been medically confirmed as having been affected by incidents in Cuba. That number could change. I've been very clear and very forthcoming with all of you. When those numbers have been changed and we've been able to medically confirm it, I brought it to you, or other representatives at the State Department have brought that to you. And so if that number changes, I will let you know. But as of now, it is 21.
Secretary Rex Tillerson said U.S. government was reviewing whether or not to close down the American embassy in Havana. Is there any decision made right now, or still under?
We are, as we would with any of our facilities around the world. That is something that we would constantly assess our security posture there. The Secretary starts many meetings here at the State Department asking this question first, and that is, are our people safe? That is a top priority for the Secretary, protecting the lives and ensuring the safety and security of Americans.
And you've
Yeah.
mentioned that Cuba has been cooperative. Do you believe the Cuban government that they don't know what has happened here?
I don't know the answer to that. They have been cooperative. I know they have helped in terms of the investigation and have provided information. They've come to us in different instances, and so I don't want to get ahead of what the Secretary's conversations are going to be this afternoon, though.
The reason I ask is because today, in the hearing before the House committee, the Deputy Secretary was asked that question, and he intimated that he didn't believe it, and he said it was a reasonable suspicion that the Cuban government knows what happened here.
I don't have the Deputy Secretary's comments in front of me, and I didn't get to catch the entire hearing on Capitol Hill. But we have followed this issue very closely. You all know that. We've talked about it here a lot. We've got the meeting coming up later this afternoon, so we'll just have to see what comes out of that. Anything else on Cuba? Anything else on Cuba?
Oh, right, Cuba.
Yes.
Do you have any update on the review of what to do about the embassy or your staffing levels there, and anything more on the investigation into the incidents?
Sure. As many of you know, we met earlier this week with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and his delegation here at the State Department. That was a meeting that was held at their request. We were more than happy to have that meeting and to be able to ask questions and have a dialogue with the Cuban delegation. I would describe the conversation between Secretary Tillerson and his counterparts as firm and frank. The Secretary continued to express his profound concern for Americans who are employed by the U.S. Embassy in Havana. Many of you have had questions in recent days about the timing of any potential announcements in terms of whether or not we change staffing levels or whatever. I just want to let you know that the Secretary is reviewing all of his options. We are reviewing how to best protect our American personnel. In terms of the investigation, the FBI has the lead on that investigation. We have a lot of conversations and dialogue with the FBI and other agencies that are a part of this investigation, and that has not been concluded just yet. One other note, I just want to let you know that the Secretary has been monitoring this very closely. We have had a lot of meetings here at the State Department with various bureaus and people weighing in. Of the safety and security of our folks who are serving the United States down there is our top concern.
So, related to
Yes.
that, it seems to have crept into some kind of conventional wisdom that you are now have determined that 25 Americans were, instead of the 21, which you have repeatedly confirmed and denied the 25, and yet the 25 continues to appear in a variety of reports.
It does.
Is there a reason for that? Is it still wrong?
Here's what I can tell you. We have had, and I want to be clear about this as well, 21 medically confirmed cases. We have always been clear about saying that number could certainly change. We have people who are undergoing medical evaluations. People's symptoms have changed, and some of them are different from one another. So they continue to undergo medical evaluations. I certainly hope that no one else is diagnosed, for lack of a better word, by the medical community. We certainly hope that that won't be the case, but if that changes, I've always been very forthcoming in bringing you the numbers as we get them, as we can confirm them.
Last one, just
Yeah.
to put a fine, no, hold on, this is on that point.
Okay.
So, right now,
Yes.
all you can confirm is 21.
Correct.
25 figure that's out there is
I have
just
no
wrong.
idea. I have no idea where the number 25
wrong,
came
right?
from. All of the briefings I have sat in with our top people have all indicated 21 is the number. However, that number could certainly change as we continue to evaluate our U.S. staff who serve down there.
21 diagnosed cases,
21 medically confirmed.
confirmed incidents related to this sonic.
That they've experienced. I'm not characterizing it that way. That's your word. That's not mine. 21 medically confirmed to have experienced health effects.
Directly related to the same specific.
We don't know what it was. We don't know who's done it. We've been very clear
I'm
about
not
that from the
saying-
beginning.
I'm saying, like, there could be more than 21 people who have reported kind of health symptoms that you believe are unrelated.
Elise,
But
I-
when you say
let-
21, do you mean they're all related to the same?
There are a lot of questions that we still have. That's why we have such a vigorous investigation that is underway. We have the best medical professionals here on the mainland helping our people and helping with the evaluations. Those evaluations are ongoing, last I had heard, which was just a few hours ago. 21 people have been medically confirmed to have experienced health effects. Okay?
Why 2 months since this has been reported for the past 2 months and so on? Why does it remain such a mystery? And since this was your first meeting with the foreign minister of Cuba, did they in any way explain what's going on, or did they come clean? How did they respond?
I wish
to
I
all
could
these
get. I
issues?
wish I could get into some of that conversation with you. Unfortunately, I cannot. We had the conversation with them. We made it very clear. Cuba has a responsibility, as does every country that hosts U.S. and other officials where we have posts. They have a responsibility to ensure that our embassy personnel are kept safe. That's under the Vienna Convention. That obviously was not done. Our people were certainly put in a very precarious situation. And let me again just say, the safety and security of our folks is our top concern. Anything else on Cuba?
So it sounds,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
it sounds
I'm
like
Michelle.
in the investigation and in terms of you leaning even one way or another as to what this was it an attack or not? You know, who did it? It doesn't sound like it's moved in any way. Or
I can't say that. I cannot speak to the investigation. I cannot speak to the details of the investigation. I'm not one of the investigators. That is handled by a separate agency, separate group of folks, so I'm not able to answer your questions about that. And even if I did have the answers to that, I probably wouldn't be able to bring it to you because we don't know who is responsible, we don't know what is responsible. We want to bring in all the facts and have those facts sussed out before I can bring it to anybody.
But
Okay.
I mean, you must have concerns that this could have, because you don't know what this was even, or who did this. This could potentially happen to any diplomat anywhere.
We have never seen this anyplace in the world before. As far as we know, this is just something that's limited to Cuba.
Heather, can you confirm, you said personnel were put in danger?
Past tense. Are you sure that the incidents have stopped?
The last incident that has been reported was in August.
And I know none since then, but are you confident that there will be no more future incidents?
Goodness, I would certainly hope not. I would certainly hope not.
You can't rule that out.
We are working hard to try to get to the bottom of this. We've tried to extend every possible assistance available to our people who are amazingly serving in Cuba, despite the situation. And frankly, a lot of our folks really want to be down there. They are happy and proud of the work that they're doing. And despite these concerns, our folks are still doing their jobs every day.
I'm just wondering if people still want to work down there and serve down there, and you're not aware of any future, obviously not aware of any future incidents, no idea what's really happening. But what is drawing down the diplomatic presence achieve?
I don't have anything to announce for you on that, okay? If that changes, I will let you know.
Based on this last high-level conversation, you're still calling this an incident, right? It's
yeah.
not appropriate to call it an attack, or is it?
Look, I prefer to call it an incident because we still do not know what the cause was, and we don't know who's responsible for it.
Can you tell us anything about the investigation, like how many FBI agents
Did
may
you
be
just walk
down
in
there?
here? Michelle just asked me that same question
Oh.
about the investigation.
Sorry.
Hi, Carol.
I misheard.
No, the answer is no. I can't tell you anything about the investigation. Okay? If I can, I'll certainly bring it to you. Okay? Go ahead. Hi, Josh.
Was asking about. Can you offer any insight into what criteria the State Department is using to determine if a diplomat in Havana comes forward and says, I have a headache, whether that is a medically confirmed incident versus just a headache or an unrelated physical ailment?
We have, when I say we have top medical staff, people, not staff working for us, but people elsewhere who are involved in this at different medical facilities in the United States. In addition, we have a medical representative there on the ground in Cuba who's there 24/7. We also have a bureau here, that's our medical bureau. So they're all involved in tracking this in terms of the kinds of tests that people are going. I just can't speak. I can't speak to that part.
Given that you don't know what is causing this, how could it be that you could medically confirm that these cases are or are not related?
I think
to it?
that's a question for the medical staff, and a lot of that would just be confidential. I'm sorry, I don't have anything for you on that. Okay.
The foreign minister?
Yes.
The Cuban government called this meeting It was scheduled, I believe, for a half hour. It went much longer than that. Why did they say they scheduled the meeting? Did they come with information? Did they come trying to avoid any type of U.S. reprisals, to insist that they weren't doing anything?
I don't want to ascribe any motivations to that, their request for the meeting. We have had conversations with them on the ground in Cuba, and I know they were heading back to Cuba from New York from having been at the United Nations, and so they stopped down here to have a conversation with us.
And they're investigating this in conjunction with the
Well,
FBI?
look, any country would have to basically sign off on U.S. investigators being on the ground. So when I've talked about their cooperation, they, gave us and our investigators the permission to head to that country to conduct investigations. Okay, let's.
Did the meeting yesterday further that cooperation, or did it kind of make it harder to continue?
I'm not going to characterize that. I'm just going to say the meeting was frank and firm, and we had it was good to have a chat. Okay? Yes, yeah. Let's move on from Cuba. I don't have anything more for you on Cuba. As I have more information for you on Cuba, I will bring it to you.
Can we just get your reaction to one? There was one report that said the U.S. had ruled out that Cuba was responsible. Can you confirm or deny that?
When I say that the investigation is ongoing,
So you haven't
the
ruled anyone out?
investigation is ongoing.
Okay.
Let me leave it at that. Okay? Let's move on. Okay, let's.